All right, guys. So today, what we're going to be going through, and a lot of feedback that I've been getting, not just from agents within Agent School and the Agent Initiative, but agents in our office as well. It's just really getting buyers in person on showings and then getting them across the line. So this will be a two-part call, and we will be going over the remainder next Wednesday. But all in all, guys, the like working with buyers, it can be a lot of fun, right? It's really fulfilling watching their excitement grow, especially if they're first time buyers and helping them across the process of showing properties and submitting an offer and getting it accepted and then going through like the condition process and then taking possession. It can be really fun, but it can also be incredibly frustrating when dealing with a client that feels that they can get more of a home that they can afford, and they really just have unrealistic expectations of what their budget can afford them. Or if they have like another decision maker that's a part of the process, or like a parent that just isn't on the same page as them or as you, right? So what we want to focus on, and everything we're going through here today, is everything that I've learned over the last 4 or 5 years in how to carry the conversation, how to set the expectations early on, and how to really just move them throughout the process really effectively, right? Because ultimately, real estate it's a game of chess, it's not checkers. And we need to understand that because it's such a complex game that we are playing, every move that we make throughout the process will ultimately affect the outcome and the conversations later, right? So let's get into some of the tactics here. I'll include the framework for this, guys, but we'll be going into this in a lot more depth. Essentially, you have your first point of contact, which I like to call the qualification conversation. We have the consultation, which I've really adamant on doing it over Zoom, and I'll explain why. And then the showings or the buyer tour, and then ultimately the closing. Okay. So the first point of contact, right? That the objective is truly to establish the rapport and the relationship. A lot of the times it's over the phone. So we have to come across less salesy and more relationship driven, right? And we want to be genuine and empathetic and approachable with with how we're approaching the prospect, especially if it's an online cold lead, because they don't know you. There hasn't been any trust that's been established. And on this call, I like to go by the 80-20 rule, right? And essentially, you allow the prospect to do 80% of the talking, and you essentially listen and understand. What I really like to do as well is re-summarize and say it back to them so they feel like they're being understood, and just ask open-ended questions, right? So they feel like they're being heard, okay? And really, the purpose of this call is just to understand the who, what, why, where, and like who else is involved. Okay. So like for the who is essentially like who else is going to be involved in the decision? Is it wife, husband, spouse? If it's an investor, is it a business partner? For the what, right? What are they looking for in their home? Like what product, how many beds, how many baths, like what are some of the amenities or specifics that they're looking for? And ultimately, what part of town or what community are they looking to live in? That's the who. The when is the time frame, and then the why is like what is the actual motivation. And the why, I always like to find out first. It's the first question I ask, and I'll go into it here in a second. And you want to find out the current dissatisfactions of why they're exploring other options on your website, on your or whatever, however they came across into your sphere. Okay. And you also want to like ask them, like as you start going through the line of questioning, you want to ask them about their hobbies and their occupations and really try to establish that rapport, right? So I had a buyer's consultation, not yesterday, but on Monday. And the other guy was in geotechnical engineering. I come from a civil engineering background. And we immediately connected because those two types of engineering share a lot of similarities, and we work a lot with each other. So he liked to hear that, and then from there, when we established that rapport, it started feeling more of like a friendly conversation, right? So Yeah, and we also want to disarm the prospects by scheduling what I like to call like an educational exploratory tour, which we're going to get into. Okay. So in terms of the qualification script, I like to use this as a framework, right? There's obviously key pieces of information that we want to find, but the last thing that we want to do is convey it in a way where we're just hammering them with questions, right? And usually when I ask each one of these questions, I'll ask them a follow-up question that dives a little bit deeper into the information that they're giving me, right? Instead of just like asking them like their motivation, location, time frame, number of beds and baths, for the motivation, I'll ask them like, what about your current home isn't quite working for you, or what has you online or in an open house exploring some other options? Like, what do you currently like about the home? What don't you like? Like, what did you like back when you purchased it that is not working for you now? Because you really want to dive deep into some of the pain points so you can use that later on. Okay. Location, I leave it again open-ended. I just say, okay, like what areas do you and your partner have your eye on? Like any communities that stick out? Why do they stick out? Why, like if they're moving between different communities, like what about this community sticks out that you love that you don't like about the current community? And again, you want to use that to find your dissatisfactions. And then the time frame. Okay. And this is really, really important to ground this, and you say like, let's picture this. Okay, you and your spouse, your business partner, whatever it is, you walk through this house and it has the layout that you're looking for, and you guys can see yourselves living here. In your mind, what would be the next steps that would need to happen for you in order to feel comfortable buying it, right? Because then instead of asking them like directly on like what is specifically your time frame, you're asking them, okay, what steps do we need to take to help get you there? And that's where you start setting the groundwork for getting the showing scheduled and getting the buy-in for, like, if they're not pre-approved for a mortgage yet, getting that process started. Okay. Number of beds and baths. So that's the what, right? No, I'm just gonna, yeah, there we go. What specifically are they looking for in a property? And then usually what I do is I'll take whatever feedback that they've given me in the motivation exploration phase and kind of tailor that to like what I'm asking for, like what they're looking for, right? Because let's just use an example as like an upsizer, and they told me that the family's expanding. Okay, perfect. So you likely need another bed, some more space, maybe an office for the family that's expanding. You really want to tap into more of those emotional cues, and then go into your budget from a financing perspective. Have you and your partner had a chance to explore like what you'd be comfortable with payment wise, and has a mortgage broker pre-approved you for that amount? And if they do, because obviously the majority, 95% of the time, you're going to be talking to one person, unless it's like a open house or you meet them in person organically, you're going to be talking to one person, right? And you want to make sure nothing will crush a deal faster than not having the husband and wife on the same page, right? I learned this the hard way, and it's really, really important, and we're going to go into like why I have this laid out the way that I do, in order to help kind of facilitate the process further. But you want to make sure, even before we go out on showings, that we have the husband and wife on the same page. Okay. And then ask them, do you have a realtor that's kind of supporting you through this process? And if they are, right, or if they do, you can say, well, you know what I'd love for us to do, if you haven't signed anything with them, yeah, I'd love to sit down with you and your wife or husband and just kind of explore some of the options that you have available to you. And I'd love the chance to kind of tell you about like what we do differently and essentially earn your business, right? And if they, like, most normal, reasonable people would be open to that, obviously, if they haven't signed anything with another agent yet. Okay. And we want to get them excited for the like the consultation and the exploratory tour, but it's really, really important, guys. Like, have the consultation prior to going out on showings, because the worst thing, and I made this mistake this past weekend, is, and I skipped this because I was a little lazy, but the last thing you want to use the consultation to like establish that rapport, to meet face to face and really hammer in expectations, right? A lot of the times why I've seen buyer deals fall apart is because the expectations aren't drilled in early. And it's kind of like that adage that like you want to have a grenade blow up while it's far away rather than in your face, right? It's the same concept, right? So the sooner that we can start having some of the conversations, and I like to do it, I like to start it on the phone while I'm on cue with the prospect, but like the next best time is on that consultation. Okay. So we use the consultation to get them set up on a safe search. I will walk them through all the properties in their price range in that area and just ask them, okay, like what do we think about this one? Like how do you like the aesthetic on this guy? How do we like the area? And then I'll start going into the market and the interest rate and the process education and really use that time to set in the expectations based on which way the market is going. And we're gonna go into how to do that here in just a second. Okay. If they haven't had the mortgage pre-approval yet, then we'll start having the discussion about like, okay, like, are you in talks with your bank? Have you started this process? We have a lot of really solid options that we work with. We can get you connected with them. And then we want to meet the other decision maker as well. It is so important to have that other decision maker on the call, just because, again, they will like nothing will hinder your progress than having another spouse or business partner that is not on the same page. And you want to have them, and like if they're involved in the process, especially if they're taking care of the majority of the finances, like we have to be in front of them and establish that rapport and credibility. Okay. Any questions so far, Neil, Caitlin, any feedback?
Um, well, and I've certainly got a bad habit of when I get a lead, I'm immediately just jump to
Mhm.
their search and saying that this is what they want, and then rather than digging down and doing the initial sort of meeting and stuff too. So
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I like we all do it, right? Like I said, I did it with a lead over the weekend, and and in retrospect, it was funny because he told me what he wanted. I like we skipped the whole consultation process, and I met him at the property, and he sent me four properties. Okay, we checked out one, and I scheduled four. We checked out one, we went through it. First time meeting was at the property. And then he started like after we went through it, he's like based on his budget, he really couldn't afford what he was looking for. And we went through the duplex. He's like, I don't want a duplex. I want a single detached with 3 beds and all this stuff. And then he looked at the ones that he sent me and he's like, okay, I don't want to view these anymore. And he ended up canceling. And I was like, it's like, man, and the reason is because I didn't like follow this process. And every time I follow this process, it always goes smoothly. But if you skip like the consultation, that is going to set you up with so much success further down the line. Like the quicker that you can get in front of them face to face, whether it's virtual or in person, before showings, it's going to serve you a lot better.
So Mason,
Caitlin?
what's your approach on like selling that appointment? Because I find that a lot of buyers, especially buyers that I haven't met before, just
Hmm.
want to start with looking at homes.
Great question. Yeah. So the way that I pitch it, and the one that actually I did on Monday, I was just on the phone with him and I was like, "Hey, are you available right now to hop on a quick Zoom?" And he was like, "Yeah," and we did. Sometimes that's not always the case, especially with the like if you're trying to get the business partner and spouse. In that specific scenario, what I like to do is just say, hey, you know what I would love for us to do, Mr. Prospect? I would love to kind of sit down and meet you face to face, right? That way, we're not meeting at the property as strangers, and really just kind of take some time educating you on the market. And what I'd like to do for all of my clients is sit down and pull up the MLS, kind of go through the price range that they're looking at, and then pull up some of the properties, right? Because what that's going to do while you're on that call with them is that they can already start seeing what they can afford in the price range that they're looking at, right?
Right.
Because the last thing you want, and again, lesson learned from the prospect over the weekend, is to show up to the property, have a whole afternoon booked off for showings, only to find out that what their budget, like what they can afford for the budget, isn't reality, right?
Right.
And like I had another situation like this happen a couple of weeks ago where I hopped on a Zoom with a prospect and like similar thing. Like he thought he could afford the super nice like exquisite condo for his budget. And then I pulled up the options, right? And because we were gonna go on showings that night, okay? And we started walking through it, and he had that realization that, hey, you know, I don't think I can afford as much as I thought I could, right? So I just saved myself driving all the way to the showings and coming back only, and the frustration because that expectation wasn't set earlier on,
Right.
right? So to wrap this up and answer your question, the way that I sell it is, hey, you know what I'd love for us, and again, it's like I always sell it as like a team effort, right? What I'd love for us to do, and what I do with all of my clients, is I'd love to sit down with you either over a Zoom, or we can meet face to face, and I'd love to meet your spouse and kind of learn a little bit more about them, and really kind of get us all on the same team, right? And I'll kind of run you through the market and what we're seeing. And what a lot of my clients find super valuable is, like, we'll pull up the MLS together. We'll kind of run through some of the specifics of like listings that are kind of within this criteria that you're showing me, and we'll kind of take it from there. And then you can pick, while we're on the call together, we can pick 2, 3, 4 listings that that you see yourself living in, and then we can schedule the call the showings for later in the week. How does
Okay.
that sound?
Yeah, I think the key there, at least in my opinion, is that if you're saying like what I do for all my buyers,
Mhm.
um, adds that level of social proof and buy-in that this
Exactly.
is a service I'm offering you, versus like, I need you to come and meet with me so that
Yeah.
I can make sure that you're not, or make sure that you're serious, or make sure that your expectations are in line. Which I think is the hard part for me, is that I need to get them in front of me. And
Mhm.
so it's, if we can, I guess if I can flip that to like, this is a service that I offer for you, and this is what my buyers, seem to appreciate, then that might be a better way to pitch it. Because I do find I struggle to get people in front of me if
Mhm.
it's not in a house. And I have stuff that, like, it's really scary for me to go into appointments that I haven't met the person.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and I think it should be probably scary for all of us, right? We don't know what we're walking into. There's lots of safety trainings out there that,
Yeah.
going into these empty homes with strangers is not like the best idea there ever was.
Well, and you can comment on that too, right? Like, and and another way to sell it, right, is saying like, hey, like my clients absolutely love this, right? Because we kind of get on we get to see like what the market is. I get to educate you on the market, and you get to see that I'm not a serial killer. Like, you get to meet me
Yeah.
first, right? And then
Yeah,
like,
spin it
again,
that way, that like, I'm not trying to see if you're a serial killer, but you can see that I'm not.
yeah, exactly, right? So like add this social proof, like say that the social proof, and that you do this for all of your clients, they're going to feel a lot more supported. And then every time that I've gotten in front of a prospect, like especially a buyer
Mhm.
initially first, the process has gone so much smoother,
Right.
right? And we're going to go into exactly why here in a second.
Okay.
But yeah, so we'll kind of transition to the exploratory tour. Okay. So here, Mr. Prospect, this is the next logical step that I think would make sense. Okay. I'd love to kind of take you out and look at some homes. And again, this is after we've walked them through. But we want to get a good sense of what your budget can afford you. We'll kind of work together. I'll handpick some properties that are in alignment with you and what you're looking for. And what's really cool is you're not buying anything on this tour, right? It's going to allow me to get a sense of, what you and your partner really like. It's also an opportunity for you to see how I work. It's my favorite part of the process. And I've done this with a lot of our clients. Okay. And it's so different than, than kind of going from behind the keyboard. What days of the week typically work best for you and your partner? Because then you're opening up the calendar, and you know what specific is going to work for them. And then if they haven't, if they haven't gotten the pre-approval yet, put it like if it's a Monday, put it on like Thursday, Friday, because you want to give them time. You want to lock in a time for the showings, but then you also want to hold them accountable to that to start moving the process forward and getting their documents submitted for the mortgage approval. Okay. So now for the consultation, right? We want to like, again, we really like want to take this time. There's the long way and the wrong way to do things, and this is the longer way to do it, right? But it's going to serve you guys a lot better. Okay. So by the way, you know, Mr. Prospect, Mrs. Prospect, before we do get together, I would love to sit down for 15, 20 minutes just to jump on a Zoom with you. There's a couple things I want to arm you with so we can go into the buying process with confidence, right? First, I want to take some time. I want to go over the market and arm you guys with the same tools that I have so we can handpick some of the properties together that we would look at. I want to take some time and educate you on the market in terms of what to expect, where we're trending, and what I think would be a good opportunity for you guys. And we want to start the conversation of getting you guys pre-qualified and pre-approved, because I want you guys to be armed with the experience that is going to be so much better, because when we go look at our first properties with you guys, we have all of our ducks in a row. We're in a competitive market right now, so a lot of listing agents are asking for the pre-approval letter beforehand, right? And we're going to show you properties that make sense financially for you. The last thing that I want for you is to show you something that you absolutely love and you see yourself living in it, only to find out that you can't afford it, right? And then I ask them, how would that make you feel? Right? And they say, oh, it would make me feel terrible. Exactly. So let's set up a time. If you're not available right now, or you and your spouse, let's set up a time later today. We'll just hop in a quick Zoom, or we'll have a quick coffee, and I'm going to walk you through the whole process, and we'll kind of get to know each other. How does that sound? Good. Okay, perfect. All right, now, so the consultation itself, right? The goal of this is really just to establish rapport and qualify the partner, right? Because again, we've qualified the one, now we need to qualify the other, okay? And like I bolded this and underlined it, but setting the expectations that like we have to hammer it so hard on this call, okay? Because this is what's going to lay the groundwork for you in the future. And it's going to also help create urgency throughout the process when the right opportunity comes up. Because the last thing we want is to take buyers out on showings and them not put offers on anything, and spend hours and hours going on 15, 20, 30 showings. It's a low value of service, low level of service for you. It's a low level of service of them, and it doesn't serve them, because you're wasting your time, you're wasting their time, and you're not getting them into the home to start building towards their wealth and their equity, right? So what I like to do is I'll pull up the MLS, right? I'll walk through the properties within the criteria and just go through each of the photos and ask them, okay, like, what do you think of this one? What do you think of this one? Because it's helping me better serve them, but it's also beating down the expectations of what they can afford, right? And you want to have that early on, and doing it on a Zoom while you're actively working and looking through things together is a lot better than when you're out doing it on properties. Okay. So yeah, we want to set up the prospect on a safe search. We want to go through like the pre-qualification, understand the down payment and monthly pay and the down payment and monthly payments, and really just establish that rapport with them and their partner to get excited to work with us. And then going back to my previous comment, like we want to create the deadlines so things are continuing to progress forward. So if they haven't been pre-approved yet, set it up in 3-4 days so they have a little bit of time to get the documents submitted. If everything's approved and they're ready to go, set up showings that night, okay, or whenever they're next available. All right. So now we're going to go into expectations, and this is the most critical part of the process. Again, to my comment, real estate is chess, it's not checkers, and we really need to understand every action, every step that we take, every conversation that we have is going to help affect the outcome in conversations later. Okay. And for me, I am such a big advocate of having these tough conversations as early as possible. Like I said, so, like I'll bring some of it into the phone, like on the first initial phone conversation. But in the consultation, it always serves me better because it educates my clients to the point where they're not just comfortable with writing an offer, but they're also excited for it. Okay. And it's entirely different with the process and the timeline when they understand the market, the expectations, the long-term goals, and then the urgency to help make a decision when the right opportunity comes up. Okay. So if your goal is to show homes and see if the client likes it enough to not put an offer in, like we're doomed, right? And we're not having these conversations because we're just going to show them home after home. It's going to be a cycle of going out and out again and again to show homes that they never put offers on. Or like if we do get into multiple offer situations without the mindset and the game plan of how to win it, it's a low level of service for them. And the more properties that they show, the more offers that we lose on, they're going to lose more and more confidence. They're going to get more and more upset. And ultimately, they might even go with another realtor. And that's not what we want to do. So if we have these tough conversations earlier, it's going to pay you dividends later. Okay. So one of the first expectations or points of discussion that I'd like to bring on early on is the interest rates. Okay. So whether they're going up, down, or they're stable, they're usually the largest driver of prices and understanding how the interest rates not just impact our market, but a lot of the external markets, right? So as an example, for Toronto and Vancouver, if interest rates go up, it's going to make it less affordable for most people and more people are going to come into Calgary, right? But if interest rates go down, it's going to make prices go up. It's going to give more people more purchasing power. Competition is going to increase and it's going to make prices go up, right? So there's a lot of different driving factors and you need to understand what causes interest rates to change, right? So inflation determines the variable rates, and those are the ones that are announced every couple months. And then the bond yields determine the fixed rates, and those are updated pretty much regularly. Okay. So remember, like people will always be more receptive to guiding them through your questioning. Okay. Like you can tell people, and this is one thing I still struggle with a lot, is like I'm too smart sometimes for my own good. And I will try drilling a point home that I know is correct. But if people are embedded in their decisions, they won't change if you're telling it this. And I heard such a good analogy on an audiobook today. And this is a little extreme, but just bear with me. This isn't my words. It was in the book. But he said, okay, if someone had a family member and they were holding them hostage and they had a gun to their head and they said, you need to believe Jesus Christ. You need to believe Jesus Christ, or I'll do whatever it is that you think I'm going to do. Okay. You could say and lie to yourself that you would believe it, but you still couldn't, right? So even if you tell the person and put them in these extreme situations, they will, like, you can lie yourself and lie to yourself that the belief is there, but the belief won't actually be there. Okay. Now to wrap this up, the point I'm trying to hit across is like people, like we are wired with all of the thoughts and opinions that we are surrounded by and that we grew up with, right? So sometimes being told, even if they are correct and they're the right opinions or the right information, they will disagree and they will not absorb the information. So the way that we do that is through our lines of questioning, okay? And a line of questioning for interest rates that I would use is like kind of along the lines of like, have you seen what's happening with the interest rates lately? If they say yes, I would ask like, what have you seen out there? Usually that they're watching the news or, even worse, the headlines. And you want to ask them, do you know what controls interest rates? Inflation determines the variable rates, bond yields determine the fixed rates, right? So what do you think will happen if interest rates go down and become cheaper? Do you think it'll become cheaper for more people to afford? What do you think will drive will that drive prices up or down? Okay. And then if people start saving hundreds or even thousands on their monthly payment and interest payments, do you think it'll bring high prices up or make things cheaper? Right. And they'll say it'll make things more expensive. Okay. So just in hammering that piece alone, it's allowed them to see, like, if they're waiting for our interest rates, it's going to make things more expensive for them. But we have to get there through our lines of questioning. Okay. And again, the intent of this conversation is really just to help people understand the simple ways that the market spikes. It goes up and down regardless of what happens. If you look at it over an extended time horizon, markets are going to climb, right? They're going to have their ups, they're going to have their downs, and there might be seasonal or temporary drops, but it's completely natural. But if you zoom out, they are naturally going to appreciate the price of their property. Okay. Moving into the next expectation that I like to set is that similar to interest rates, most people get their information from the news and headlines, and they're often a reflection of natural prices and not specific to our market. Okay. If the market is crashing, be honest with them and tell them, like, it could be a good time to wait, or we could go in on a lowball offer if we really, really wanted to and get something for a lot cheaper. Okay. But if it's a better time to buy in an appreciating market, we have to really get it home with them that the right time to buy was a month ago, 2 months ago, right? But the next best time to buy is today, or if we wait, as a seller, the best time to sell is in a couple of months from now. And that's if you're in an appreciating market. Okay. Now this one, this is the one, like, there's no perfect home. Okay. This is going to be the most important conversation that we have to have with almost every single buyer. Okay. And the earlier we have it, the better it's going to serve us later in the process. And this is why I like going over this on Zoom with the prospects and showing them the houses that they can afford, right? Because it leaves you less up for disappointment later on. They always want something that is outside of their price range. Like they'll have to compromise on, like, the lot, the view, the extra space, finished basement, beds, baths, amenities, all of that. Okay. But we need to explain that almost no goal has ever been achieved in one step. And depending on how hot the market is, they have to, like, it's going to be the first step in a multiple step process. And in order for them to reach their goal, it's not going to happen all at once. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day, but if they don't take that right step, it may never happen. Okay. So if they don't, like, there is a cost to inaction. Okay. And they will actually fall farther behind and never reach their goals if they don't take that step. And it is our duty to have their best interests in mind, to have these tough conversations so we drill this home and they understand it. Okay. So there's essentially 3 different types of markets and different expectations that we set. And I like doing this again on the first call, if not on the consultation. We do not want to have this conversation at the property, because by then you're fighting an uphill battle. Okay. So when we're in a slower buyer's market, right, this is when the buyer has all the leverage. This is when listings are sitting on market for 60 to 90 days, and they can generally get a good deal. And they can also spend some time on the thought, because there's not a lot of competition. Okay. And this is the time that we can get a lot of our buyers into their community, their favorite communities, and into a property that checks most of the boxes. And this is going to be like more of like an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 property. Okay. And I tell them this. Now, if we're in like a neutral or balanced market, this is when prices are stable. There's 3 to 6 months worth of inventory, and there's not a lot of pressure to get offers in, but any desirable homes that are priced correctly will typically move quickly. And this needs to be communicated to the client. And this is where we can have the conversation with them that, we're not going to get into something that is a 10 out of 10, but we can likely get anywhere from like a 6 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10 here. Okay. Now, in a hot seller's market, which is what we're all in right now, this is where listings are going into multiple offer situations, right? And if the home is priced correctly, it's getting snatched right away. Okay. And we have to tell them this. And we have to also really drive in that we are looking for, like, we are lucky if we get into a 5 out of 10 here because of the competition, because of all the like the bidding wars. And the longer that we wait, the more competitive it's going to get, the less of a home that you're going to be able to afford for that same budget. Okay. So, and the longer it takes them to realize that, the more it's going to cost them, and they will likely get priced into a lower quality home in that same budget because the market is moving so quickly. Okay. And having these honest and frequent, candid conversations throughout the whole process it's extremely important, because again, we're setting them up, like we're setting them up to have the expectation that we're not looking for a 10 out of 10, right? And if you are looking for a 10 out of 10, they're going to be set up for disappointment. You're going to be pulling teeth, right? And it's just like you guys are going to ultimately end up going your own way because because we didn't have this conversation early on. Okay. But if they can get their foot in the door and start raising that equity when the market stabilizes, they can sell, they can take that next step into their dream home. Okay. But these convos should be held in the consultation. But at like the earlier, the better it's going to serve you. Okay. Neil, any questions?
No, makes sense.
Okay, perfect. Now, a good analogy that I used recently that really got the point across was the dream car analogy. Okay, and I had a client I was talking to, and I asked him, like, okay, so because he was in the same spot where he's like, I want something that's outside of my price range, and I asked him, okay, so what is your dream car? Okay, and he said it's a Ferrari, and I asked him, what was your first car? And he said it was a Honda Civic. And I was like, okay, what is your current car? Like, what are you driving right now? And he said, I'm driving a Mercedes. And I asked him, why didn't you buy your dream car first? Why didn't you just skip everything and buy the Ferrari right away? And he said, I couldn't afford it. Right. So I said, exactly. So what you're telling me is that you took this first step in buying the Honda Civic. You took the next step with your current car, like with the Mercedes, and you'll likely need to take a few more steps before getting into your dream car. And they're just like, oh yeah. So do you see how it's kind of the same, that we have to kind of like our end goal is like we have to take steps towards that, right? So do you see how getting into a 5 out of 10 now will help us use that as a stepping stone to maybe get into a 7 out of 10 later? But if we wait, we may have to settle for like a 3 or 4 out of 10. And then that's like when the epiphany, and I saw the light come on in his mind, right? But again, you can tell people this, but we have to use like questioning and analogies in order to kind of drive a point home. Okay. So that is my framework for setting expectations. Again, the key thing is to help create urgency and really be someone of service, is to educate, is to set expectations, and to spend a little bit more time on the front end, on like early on in the process, because it's going to serve you a lot better in the end, right? Another thing that I really am hitting home on early on is the expectations of bidding wars, right? Because in an inclining market, a lot of people are scared of bidding wars. They're a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but it is a good sign. It is something to be excited about for a couple of reasons, right? If a property isn't priced correctly or it's not desirable, it's likely sitting on market for quite a long time, like 30, 60, 90 days, right? And anytime I see that, there's like a red flag that comes up in my mind that it's either priced too high or there's something wrong with the property. It could be going to like there's something wrong with the building, like special assessments. There's a bit more to the story there, right? Whereas if we are like, if we go and see a property and it's priced correctly, every other buyer is going to want to make a move on it, right? So the bidding wars are inevitable and are a sign that we are moving in the right direction. It's something that we want to get excited for. Okay. And I explain this to my buyers. So that is all for today. Next week on Wednesday, we will be going through the importance and the process of the exploratory tour. Again, how to beat down more expectations, the framework of getting them to submit an offer. And yeah, we'll go through that process. We can kind of get some deals, some more clients across the line to submitting offers. But that is all for today. I will leave it open for questions. Nav, I saw you hopped in a little bit late. How we doing?
He's muted.
Yeah, doing great, doing good.
Awesome. Any thoughts, questions, or feedback?
You
on
nailed
the-
you nailed everything. So it was very informative and very good.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Mason.
Yeah, thanks for hopping in. Neil, any questions on your end? Comments, feedback?
No, that was great. I definitely picked up some more on drilling down on you know, the initial questions and getting that rather than just responding to sending them listings. Yeah, so
Yeah, exactly. It's so important, guys. And like I said, you want to have the grenade explode while it's far away instead of right in your face when it matters most, right? Because then you're essentially fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah.
Right. Nav, if you haven't yet, I'm going to drop the Slack invitation within the chat here.
Okay.
Definitely join that. That is our method of communication. If you ever need any help or support,
Great.
you can hop in Slack and shoot us off.
I gotta run. See you guys.
Thank you, Mason.
All right. Have a good one and happy selling.
Okay, you too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.